Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Farscape Season 1, Episode 5, Back and Back and Back to the Future. Two survivors from a destroyed ship weave intrigue as John finds himself unstuck in time. How did you find this one?
I didn't find it very well.
Didn't?
Yeah, I didn't like this one very much.
Could that be because it's not terribly good?
That's a good guess.
To be more specific, I think the first half drags so badly.
Yes, that, and I think you've said this before, where for time travel stuff to work, you have to understand the rules, and I didn't understand the rules here. It seemed kind of random.
The whole episode had a kind of improvisational feel to it. I think it only really started working towards the end when he was navigating the different possibilities.
Yeah, it took too long to start working.
All the stuff with the sexy visions at the start was never really addressed. That never happened either, so...
That never happened, and they
Yeah.
never told us what that was. And it was really uncomfortable because they wanted it to be sexual, but then they couldn't be explicit, so then it was just weird.
It wasn't totally clear if they were having a good time or a bad time.
Yeah.
Until John says, whoa, it's kind of romantic. That's not what he says. He talks to Doug about it. The whole thing had a kind of sitcom vibe to it.
Without John's input, I would have thought she wanted to eat him or something. It was weird.
There was a sexy vibe to it, but the whole show is sexy. So yeah, you can't tell if it's a murder or a romance or she's consuming him. Another thing that's terrible about this episode is the fighting the kung fu.
Yeah.
So bad.
I don't even like how that part ended. I was glad they stopped fighting, but then they did the really hacky thing where she is perfectly aligned with the pattern on the floor.
When they do things like that, it needs to be natural.
Unlike Matala's delivery.
I actually quite liked her delivery. Are you talking about her weird intonation and stuff like that?
Yeah. Why would he do that?
Okay, that sounds like a drowning Forrest Gump. Which isn't far off how she sounds, to be fair. I kind of like it. I like that there's a sort of deviation in how these aliens talk. As long as it doesn't get annoying, which it kind of did here, and also the guy, Varel, didn't have this intonation, so...
Right. In general, I like that stuff where there are deviations and there are things that differentiate these aliens. But here, first of all, she's an intruder. She's not who she says she is, so she shouldn't be drawing attention to herself. She should be trying as best as she can to represent herself as what she's trying to be. And you don't do that by talking like a weirdo.
Maybe all Atlantic women talk like that.
Yeah.
It's like like Valley Girl talk or something. Or it's like a vocal fry.
Well, you explained that well enough, but I still didn't like it.
It was probably a bit overdone. It kind of got annoying. Not super annoying, but annoying enough that it became noticeable. Was there anything good about this episode?
Yes.
Oh, there was? Sorry, I said, oh, there was, as if there's no redeeming features, but there are plenty of things they did right. What did you have a specific thing in mind?
It is highly specific, and
Okay.
the sound design when Moya sounds different. When Zan asks Rigel, "Hey, do you notice anything weird or off?" And then it does sound weird and off. And I like how they do that and remind us that the ship is alive. Um, I like when they incorporate the ship into what's happening.
Similar to sound, the music in this episode was a lot more fitting to the show. It was less weird like some of the earlier episodes. I also liked that John put the mask on the floor and stood on it and then had this weird expression on his face, just blanking Zan out completely.
I liked his expression, but I hated that moment because of headcanon, and I will reveal that now.
Go.
So as soon as we see that decorative mask thing, I had to invent a reason for why it was there or what it was. And the first thing I thought of was that it's a death mask. And I thought that's super rude for John to just break that. And it's irreplaceable. And it could be Zan's mother or father.
I thought it might be a death mask or an imprint of a family member as well.
Right? Doesn't that make sense? She doesn't have a whole lot in there. So whatever's in there is probably of extreme import. And people keep urns with ashes, so why not? Well, people keep death masks, I think, right? I don't know anything about death masks except other than they exist.
Well, it's the point of them.
Oh, I thought you just get the mask and then hide it forever.
It might have just been artwork. I don't know. When John picks it up, it's a bit uncomfortable. It's glass. You don't just go picking up glass ornaments and flinging them about.
And he doesn't know everything about this place. He shouldn't just grab stuff.
It could be something quite personal, like a hygiene product. Don't ask me how, but we don't know what Delvian biology is like.
And you could point out that Zan barely reacts when he breaks it, but that's her character. I could see her reacting that way, even if it's a death mask, because she's so calm and soothing.
She's probably very good at suppressing her feelings. In the previous episode, she said she wanted to tear the guy limb from limb, but she's not gonna. So I think she's pretty good at bottling stuff up. Which is why it's quite uncomfortable when John just stands on it and looks her in the eye.
This is what I think of your possessions.
You can't help but see it in the context of them not having his context. He just suddenly turns into a psychopath.
They don't understand a lot of his behaviors anyway, and this feeds into that.
Erin had a good line about that, didn't she?
You are very odd, Crichton.
That wasn't even the one I'm thinking of, but yes.
She had a lot of good lines. That's another thing I liked about this episode. There was that one, and the one I loved the most, we have Erin here.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said we have Erin here, like she's talking about herself in third person.
I didn't even think of that.
I like that they take idioms and flip them around.
It's an easy joke to make, but the air one, it's more subtle. It didn't strike me when John said it, whereas if he said something like, well, when in Rome, that would really stick out to me. Why would they know Rome? Why are you saying that? But it's so common for, oh, I need to get some fresh air. Or, it didn't hit my ears, and then she responds, and it reveals how weird it is to say that in that context.
There's a lot of sci-fi shows where the aliens only ever use human idioms and human proverbs and stuff. So they're flipping that on its head, kind of. Erin did something else which I liked, which is at the start when the ship arrives in the hangar, she turns up with a huge rifle.
Yeah, they make too many assumptions that people are going to be nice in sci-fi shows in general.
Yeah, they have their heads a bit better screwed on, or at least Aaron does. They don't know what's in that shuttle. Much easier to greet them with a massive rifle.
In some cultures, it's rude not to have a massive rifle.
Such as the United States.
Exactly.
Little dig at your country there. Ha. Bet you're really...
I'm seething.
Yeah. Reaching for your Glock.
That would mean that I'm greeting you. Wait, that's not a massive rifle. It's a tiny handgun.
Okay.
That means I'm only greeting you in a small way.
There's one more thing that I want to compliment, which is that the black hole explosion was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that looked good.
I'm going to see it on Moya and on the other ship.
That looks surprisingly good. But the ship itself looked, when it was docking, that didn't look great. But that's okay, because we had the black hole thing.
So as long as we know they tried their best, it's fine?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Oh, I have another thing I want to compliment.
This is a bad episode, so I don't know why we're struggling to find all the bits. I was just going to list everything we like and then say, well, everything else, apart from the things we specifically mentioned, was not very good.
Yeah, it's more economical that way.
Okay, well, what was the other shred of decent things in this episode? Shred of decent things? What?
I like how John was impatient when he already knew everything and he was rushing everyone like, yes, we know this and this and this. I need to tell you more important things. Let's get a move on.
That highlights why the first half of the episode was bad.
Yes.
If a show is engaging, it stays engaging by going at the pace that the viewer understands it, especially with sci-fi where there's a lot of conceptual stuff. If it's dramatic in nature, then the pacing is different. But if it's exploring ideas, you don't want to linger on ideas that the viewer has already taken on board and digested. So, because that was the third I don't know what you would call it, time sequence. We already know what's happening and we know all the stuff he's discovered, and so he starts firing it off fast, and that's good because you just want to catch your reactions and move on to the next move on to the next sequence of events.
Which should have happened earlier. He should have been exploring timelines right away. It took too long for that to start happening. That's when it got interesting.
Yeah, this is an idea that has been done. It's been done on Star Trek several times. I can't remember if it's done on the original series, but it's not a new concept. In the other episodes of Farscape, they've put ideas across pretty quick, got to the juicy stuff. This one, they lingered. Like the first two acts were so slow, and then John wasn't telling anyone about it because it was too sexy and embarrassing. It kind of just... I expect more of this show already.
I expect more too, even though I haven't seen much.
Well, it's not just what we've seen. We know the time in which it was made was late 90s. So it post-dated Star Trek Next Generation and Babylon 5 and a lot of other stuff. So you have an expectation that it's not going to make obvious mistakes. And I would call the pacing of the first half of this episode and the weird way in which the time travel just sort of changed behavior, I would call them mistakes.
Yeah. Extreme oversight, maybe putting it lightly.
It maybe seemed better as a script than it did as a finished product.
John has a vision that is sexy in nature. Move on to next scene.
I will say, I don't mind that they took an idea that's been done several times and did their own twist on it. That's fine.
But explore it because it's a known idea.
Which is what they did get to at the end, when he was trying to negotiate a sort of no-win situation. Which is it's a bit like Groundhog Day eventually, which is good because Groundhog Day is really good.
But Groundhog Day has rules. We know what causes the reset or what leads to a reset. We don't know why this resets.
It's true. He dies and then it's back to the mask, and then just he breaks the mask again, as if that's some kind of anchor, but that's never really addressed.
Well, it helps us as a viewer. Oh, okay, this is that same scene. But then why that same scene? Why there? And if it resets because he dies, then what is the real consequence? He could try anything. How do we know when it's the final real timeline where he actually could die? I suppose that's the tension. We don't know. I would have liked the rules somehow.
So he dies 10 episodes later, and it just rewinds back to the mask again. Oh yeah, we never sorted that out. Did they correct the issue with him?
We don't know because they didn't establish anything. I don't think they did because the green stuff invaded him, so it wasn't an environmental thing. It wasn't because the green stuff was near. It went inside him.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe he'll die and then we'll go back to this mask. He'll have to relive 10 episodes.
Hopefully, they'll forget all about this episode.
And never address it again?
Well, apart from the one reveal that's likely to have an impact later on about Dargo lying about his crime.
Right, there's that. So, I guess this episode isn't worthless.
Bad episodes can have good consequences. I don't know, there's not much to that though. All he said was he murdered a peacekeeper. And now we know that's not true. But I guess he's ashamed of what he did, and John was enough of a cool guy to not tell everyone.
That reveal fell flat to me. I don't care what he did. He's a criminal and that's fine. It led to him meeting other criminals. What did he do? Blow up a planet? Even then, he's still Dargo and they still need him and they're still banding, or they're still together.
The peacekeepers are really unfair, so they could have done things which are not that bad or just a bit shameful or whatever, and it would be considered a crime. So just having him be ashamed of a crime, it doesn't mean much. The peacekeepers are really harsh. You know, who's to say what it was? And he's clearly ashamed of it, which kind of works in his favor, I guess. If we knew the characters more or knew their histories more, it might have had more weight.
Yeah, that's the piece that's missing. I don't know enough about Dargo, so to say, oh, I lied about this part about my past, well, I don't know much about your past anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
We're still at the stage of assessing them for how they are, and he seems like a fairly okay dude, if not too bright.
A bit aggressive,
Yeah, he's
belligerent.
a bit angry and slightly violent, but generally okay. He seems also brave and loyal and blah blah blah. So you know, I don't think he's going to be like a serial killer or something. It wouldn't fit.
No, that wouldn't match his reaction either.
What was her plan? Metallo's plan when she went to do training with Aaron, which, by the way, that's a hell of a training routine. They were directly punching each other in the face.
That's not the kind of exercise that that was a weird form of exercise.
It was open hostility. But anyway, she fights like a Scorpion, which I guess means in a ridiculously stupid way.
Yep.
And then she knocks Aaron out. She doesn't kill Aaron, she just punches her in the jubblies, and then Aaron falls over in a well-aligned manner. And then Aaron gets up a while later and now knows that she's a spy. How does that help Metalla?
No one said Metalla is a good spy. But yeah, she should have killed Aaron. Maybe she thought she did, and then didn't check.
Then she's definitely not a good spy. Plus, why would she kill Aaron? Aaron didn't suspect her of anything.
But she knows she's an incompetent spy, so she wants to kill people before they even suspect, to cover her bases.
Because she's actively trying to be incompetent.
Yes.
Because incompetency has a higher pay grade?
It's riskier, so she charges more.
Okay. Why didn't she just go with Varel and then kill him on the way over to the other ship? You can probably just say incompetence again.
Okay, incompetence. This all ties back to what you were saying earlier, how this all seems kind of haphazard and doesn't flow right.
It did seem like they made it up from start to finish without going back to edit it. I'm sure they probably edited it a lot. It just doesn't feel like that. It just feels kind of rambly and full of plot holes.
I don't understand why she did anything. Just hang out with Varel for a while. Don't talk to anyone. You're fine.
Yeah, just chill. He finished the black hole weapon, and then they meet up. Kill him on the way there. Or if the whole ship is full of Scorian spies, just capture him, kill him, whatever.
Why risk being found out after you murder someone?
Why murder anyone? What's the point? These are all escaped criminals. They're not going to come following you around and asking questions. And they had the perfect in as well, because Dargo treated them with respect and wanted to help. So they could have just said, "Oh, we're really grateful if you can do this rendezvous with us for us. That'd be cool. We'll keep out of your hair. We'll be gone. Don't worry about it." Then John would have just had forwards flashes to boring stuff.
Boring conversations.
Yeah. And they could have just said, "Well, that's really weird. We don't know what that's about."
This episode didn't need to be an episode.
What do you mean?
Matala didn't need to do anything that she was doing.
Oh, you mean if Matala had acted more rationally and more like an actual spy, the whole event would have been so mundane that it wouldn't have been worth making an episode about?
Yes, that.
That is another major problem with this episode.
Ideally, your episode cannot be summarized in that way.
It should not be simplified out of existence by correcting the plot holes.
Oh, by the way, this is all inconsequential.
Do you have a quote from this show which you'd like to share with us?
He says he is experiencing the future. The future, he can barely function in the present.
That's the line I was thinking of.
I didn't quote it earlier because I wanted to quote it later.
Oh, you held back.
Again, Erin had a bunch of great lines. She was the MVP of this trash heap.
Oh, she's the MVP. She punched Mattel in the face several times and dissed John.
Several times.
Yep. Well, maybe we should just leave it at that. This episode doesn't function in the present, so we should move on to the future.
And then,
which is next episode. That's what I mean.
Okay. Got it.
We should definitely not go back to this episode.
Do I need to break your death mask now? Do you have a death mask that I can break?
What? No.
Will you get one so I can break it?
I'd have to die, so I couldn't own...
You don't have to die.
Oh. You mean just a death mask, not my death mask? Okay.
Just nick somebody else's.
And then give it to you so you can smash it. It wouldn't have any sentimental value for me.
No, you wouldn't give it to me. It would be in your room, and then I would grab it without asking, and then stomp on it. And then I would become unstuck in time.
That's not... The mask had nothing to do with it.
Well, they made it seem that way.
Oh, God. Once again, the broadcast order was different. This episode, Back and Back and Back to the Future. If they'd actually done proper titles for season 1, I doubt this would have been called what it is. But anyway, the next episode is called Thank God It's Friday Again.
That's an awful title.
Is it worse than Back and Back and Back to the Future?
Oh no, that's way worse.
These two episodes do sound kind of similar. Maybe it's a two-parter.
I hope more masks are broken.
I hope more faces are broken.
Well, it was a mask. That's a face.
Well, we both hope for the same thing.
I don't know why we're hoping for what happened in this episode, an episode we did not like.
Okay, let's just shut up.
Oh, yes.